Welcome. Please comment where you're watching in the world. Leave a like and sub if you enjoy the stories. There's a certain kind of silence that settles over your home when someone's over, and you realize you want them gone. Not because they've done something dramatically awful, but because their very presence feels like an intrusion. This is the story of a second date that turned into an unexpected and uninvited staycation. Spoiler alert, I didn't sign up to host it. Let's rewind a bit. I had just met this man a few days earlier. Let's call him Brian. He was polite, had a decent job, and lived about an hour away. Our first date wasn't amazing, but it was pleasant enough. We went out for an early dinner, around 4 p.m., and while there wasn't much chemistry, I figured it could just be first date nerves. Conversation was fine. He talked about himself, but didn't really ask me much. I noticed that, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He seemed more interested in eating than connecting, but I chalked it up to hunger. After we ate, he asked if he could see where I lived. That was already a bit of a red flag, but I'm a trusting person by nature, and we were in a public place, so I agreed. We didn't go inside, though. We sat on my patio, and even then, he made a comment about preferring to be indoors. I joked about him being high maintenance, but I should have taken it more seriously. Now, date number 2 came quickly. He called and asked if I was free the next day. I had work, but I told him I'd rearrange some things and take the afternoon off. That's a big deal for me. I don't get a lot of time off, and I value my time deeply. Still, I thought maybe this second date would allow us to connect more meaningfully. Spoiler, it didn't. I suggested we attend a local event in my town, something I was genuinely excited about. Tickets were pricey, but I was willing to cover it because I really wanted to go. When I told him about it, he dismissed it immediately. "Oh no, I don't want to be out late. That sounds like too much." That already rubbed me the wrong way, but I let it slide. So he arrived hours before that event would have even started. Plenty of time to do something, right? Wrong. He came in, made himself at home, and parked himself on my couch. Literally. Shoes off, feet up on my coffee table, remote in hand, flipping through my Roku like he lived there. He put on some old cowboy movie and leaned back like he owned the place. I stood there quietly, watching him settle in. Not once did he ask if I wanted to watch anything. Not once did he offer to go anywhere or even ask how my day was. I suggested getting something to eat, and he said, "I'm not really hungry yet." Okay, maybe later then. But later never came. He wasn't interested in doing anything. He wasn't interested in me. He was interested in my air conditioning, my sofa, my TV, and, eventually, my fridge. I walked around my house doing chores I hadn't had time to get to. Folding laundry, putting things away, wiping down counters. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed something to do while this man occupied my space like an unwanted roommate. At one point, he left to get something from his car. I didn't ask what. I didn't care. I was just relieved to have the house to myself for 5 minutes. But then I noticed something strange. I walked into my guest bathroom, and something felt off. I couldn't quite place it. Then I went into my private bathroom, the one attached to my bedroom, and there it was, a toothbrush and a bar of soap that weren't mine. I stood there in disbelief. Was this man planning to spend the night? On our second date? I marched back into the living room. "Is that your stuff in my bathroom?" I asked directly. He didn't even flinch. "Yeah," he said casually. "I figured I'd stay over. It's a long drive back." "Excuse me?" I was stunned. We'd made no such agreement. He hadn't asked. He hadn't even hinted. He'd just decided, all on his own, that he would be sleeping at my house. It was as if he saw me as a bed and breakfast, not a person. I told him flatly, "No, that's not going to happen." He looked surprised, offended even, as if I had broken some unspoken contract. "I've got a good job, you know," he said, as if that somehow made what he was doing okay. "I have a job too," I replied. "And this is my house. I pay for everything you're enjoying right now." He didn't leave right away. He lingered. Eventually, I had to ask him, directly and firmly, to go. I told him I was offended that he had wasted my only afternoon off by treating my home like his personal lounge. That this wasn't a date. This was freeloading. Before he left, he had the audacity to say, "You're out of beer." I had one little beer in the fridge. Just one. He drank it, and then told me I was out like I was supposed to restock for him. That was the final straw. I told him, "You have no dating etiquette, no house manners, and you clearly have no respect for my time or space. Please leave." After he left, I sat on the couch and let out the biggest sigh of my life. I felt like I had just reclaimed my house from an invader. I also realized how deep my people-pleasing tendencies ran, that I had let this go on for hours before finally saying something. And you know what? I deserve better. We all do. There are bad dates, and then there are dates where you literally jump out of a moving car just to escape the madness. This is one of those stories. It started with someone I had known since high school. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus had pursued me off and on for over 20 years. We were never romantically involved back then. No kissing, no dating, not even flirting. But he always made it clear that he was interested. Over time, I figured it was harmless admiration. So when he recently reached out and suggested we go on a date, I thought, why not? After all, we had history, if not romantic, at least familiar. Maybe he'd grown into the man he always wanted to be. He asked me out, and we agreed to meet for dinner. The date was set for 6 p.m. At 6:10, he texted to let me know he was stuck in traffic. LA traffic is no joke, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. At 6:30, he called and said he was still on his way, apologizing and giving me updates about his ETA. I appreciated the communication, but internally I was already irritated. It was now 7 p.m., over an hour late, when he finally pulled up to pick me up. Trying to stay positive, I got in the car. We hugged and exchanged pleasantries. "It's been so long," he said, and I nodded, still trying to convince myself this could be salvaged. But I couldn't let the tardiness slide entirely. I calmly told him, "Hey, I know things come up, but in the future, please don't be this late. I really value my time, and waiting over an hour isn't something I'm willing to do again." Let me make it clear, I wasn't rude. I wasn't yelling or condescending. I wasn't even sarcastic. I simply communicated a boundary. And just like that, something in him snapped. He glared at me, then without a word, made a sharp U-turn. "I'm taking you back," he said flatly, his voice simmering with anger. "Who do you think you are telling me when I can or can't show up? I drove 30 minutes to pick you up. I paid for these tickets. You're ungrateful." I sat there stunned. Was this man serious? I tried to reason with him, but he was on a rant now, going on about how I should be grateful, how I was acting entitled, and how he didn't deserve to be lectured. I realized something then. This wasn't about being late. This was about control. This man had waited 2 decades for a chance with me, and now that he had it, he didn't want a partner, he wanted power. My heart started racing. He was driving erratically, his voice rising with every sentence. I could feel the tension in the air, and suddenly, the car didn't feel safe anymore. I didn't know what he was capable of, and I wasn't going to stick around to find out. He slowed slightly at a stop sign, and that's when I made my move. I yanked the door open and jumped out. Not a full-on action movie barrel roll, but definitely a moving exit. I didn't even bother to shut the car door. "Are you crazy?" he screamed from the driver's seat, slamming on the brakes and jerking the car around in the middle of the street. I didn't look back. I just walked quickly and confidently the other direction. He sped off, tires screeching, still shouting something I couldn't hear. I didn't care. I was safe. That was all that mattered. As I stood on the sidewalk, catching my breath, I had a moment of clarity. This man wasn't new to me. I had known him for over 20 years, or so I thought. But the person who had been so persistent, who had waited all this time for a chance, wasn't patient or romantic. He was resentful. He didn't want to date me. He wanted to punish me for not giving him access sooner. And the worst part, I had done nothing to him. No ghosting, no rejection, no drama. Just life going in different directions. But to him, that was enough to feel entitled. Entitled not just to my time, but to my silence, my patience, my forgiveness of his disrespect. It's funny how people can hold on to resentment for years and mask it as affection. He had probably built up an entire fantasy of what it would be like to date me, and when reality didn't match, he lashed out. Because in his fantasy, I was supposed to be overjoyed, compliant, grateful. In real life, I had standards, and that was unacceptable to him. Later that night, I told my friends what happened. They were shocked, but not surprised. "That's why they say never date someone who's been obsessed with you for years," one said. "Because it's not about love, it's about power." I went to bed that night grateful that I had listened to my gut. Grateful that I didn't try to be nice or see it through. Because what started as a late arrival turned into a full-blown meltdown. And if I hadn't jumped out of that car, who knows how it might have escalated. So here's what I learned. Familiarity doesn't equal safety. Just because someone's been in your orbit for a long time doesn't mean they deserve a place in your life. And never, ever ignore those early red flags, like being an hour late without a real apology, or flipping out when you assert a basic boundary. Let me start this off by saying one thing loud and clear. I am not a FaceTime girl. If you want to talk to me, send a text. Hit me with a voice note. Hell, write me a haiku or send a raven like it's Game of Thrones. But don't just FaceTime me out of nowhere and expect me to pick up like we're 16 and bored. So when I met this guy, I'll call him Corey, he seemed cool at first. We met on a dating app. He was handsome, had a little salt and pepper beard going on, and his profile said he was 40. Which, okay, I thought meant grown man energy. I was clearly mistaken. We matched on a Friday. Our first conversation was decent. He was funny, flirty, and a little sassy. Now, I don't mind a little sass, we can go tit for tat, joke for joke, but this dude was dropping some comments that were giving feminine rage. You know what I mean? Like the kind of stuff that makes you pause and go, wait, did he just say that to me? But I decided to give him a chance. Maybe he was just playful. Maybe it was harmless. Then the FaceTime started. Y'all, this man FaceTimed me back to back like he was paying my phone bill. And every time I ignored it, here came the texts. Why you not answering? You must be busy. LOL, you always dodging my calls. Sir, it's been 2 days. Chill. I told him straight up. Hey, I don't really do FaceTime like that unless we're close. I prefer texting, just so you know. He said, oh, okay, cool. I understand. Lies. That same day, he FaceTimed me again. I didn't answer. He texted me immediately after. And this is where the story takes a sharp left. He goes, you must be ugly without makeup since you never pick up FaceTime. Excuse me? Sir, you're a 40-year-old man. You really just texted that with your whole chest? Immediate. Block. Like don't pass go, don't collect $200, get the hell off my phone. But I wasn't done. I texted back one last time before I blocked him. A grown man talking like that is a massive turnoff. You're giving middle school energy. For the record, I have thousands of videos online, face bare, no makeup. Shut up. He tried to backpedal. Oh, did he try? He edited the message. Yes, iPhone snitched on him. The original message, you must be ugly without makeup, he changed to just I. That's it. Just the letter I. And the next one where he said, because you never answer, he changed it to miss you. MISSYOU. Now how the hell does you must be ugly without makeup turn into miss you? Boy, if you don't take your insecure, emotionally unstable self somewhere else. I blocked him on everything. Number? Blocked. Instagram? Blocked. Carrier pigeon? Blocked. Don't play with me. And you know what the wildest part is? The way that message immediately gave me the ick. Not even regular ick. Capital I ick. Like I could feel my ovaries curling up and crossing their arms like, no babies with this one. Shut it down. Because here's what that message really meant. It wasn't just about FaceTime. It wasn't even about makeup. It was about control. He wanted me to be available whenever he called. He wanted me to perform, to look pretty on command, to be grateful for his attention. And when I didn't give him that, he lashed out. That's not a man. That's a walking tantrum. And look, I'm not saying FaceTime is evil. If we're vibing, if we've built rapport, of course I'll pick up. But we just matched. You don't get FaceTime privileges just because you swiped right and said I was cute. And if your first instinct when I don't give you what you want is to insult me, you just told on yourself. You're not mature. You're not emotionally safe. You're not someone I can trust when shit gets real. Because if this is how you act over a missed call, what happens when I say no to something that really matters? Exactly. Moral of the story? A man who respects you will respect your boundaries. Full stop. If he doesn't, block him. Don't explain. Don't negotiate. Just block. Because sometimes, protecting your peace is a one-click situation. And the next time a man tries to come for me over FaceTime, I'm just going to post a fresh no-makeup selfie with the caption, still not answering. Stay mad, baby. Whenever y'all start dating somebody new, please, I beg you, check them IDs. Do a background check, ask to see their license, hell, ask to see their yearbook. Because I learned the hard way that people will lie to your face so smoothly, you'll start questioning your own memory. Let me tell you about this man I used to date. Let's call him Drake. Not because he was a rapper or fine like that, but because he was fake as hell, just like the industry. We were together for almost a year. Nothing too serious at first, but it grew. He was charming, sweet, the kind of guy who knew just what to say to make you feel like the only girl in the world. We had our ups and downs, but I thought we were solid. Until I realized I didn't know that man at all. We broke up because I got tired of him making excuses for everything. Couldn't get a job, couldn't keep his word, couldn't be consistent. I was done. A few months passed. I hadn't heard from him, which was odd because we had that toxic on and off thing where we'd still talk, even after the breakups. So being nosy and a little bored, I did what any curious ex might do. I went looking. I found one of his old Instagram accounts. It had been dormant, but I went scrolling anyway. That's when things started feeling off. There was a picture of him with two girls he'd told me were his older sisters. But the caption said, "Me and my baby sisters." I was like, huh, didn't you say you were the youngest? At first, I brushed it off. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe he meant it in a protective way. Whatever. But then I kept scrolling. I found a picture of him in a school uniform with the caption, "Big Senior." The post was from 2013. Now hold on. According to him, he was only 1 year older than me. I graduated in 2019. So if he was a senior in 2013, do the math. That would make him what? 5, maybe 6 years older than me? I started spiraling. Was he just trolling back then? Was it a joke? Or was he lying about his age this whole time? Now I'm suspicious. I hop over to Facebook, because if there's one place people don't clean up their mess, it's Facebook. And that's when the lies started unraveling like a cheap lace front. First, I found multiple profiles with his name. All old. All full of inconsistencies. Different hometowns. Different birthdays. Then I found a picture of his supposed baby mama. He told me she was Mexican. Said it in passing one day like it was no big deal. But this girl? Blonde, blue-eyed, pale as a ghost. I clicked her profile, looked through her pictures, and yep, that was her. White. Like white. Not a trace of Mexican heritage in sight. I was like, why lie about that? If your baby mama's white, just say that. But then I thought, maybe he was trying to make her sound more exotic? Less trashy? Because no lie, she looked a little rough around the edges. I'm not judging, but I kind of am. Sorry. Next, I saw that he was from this small country town called Basel. But he told me he was from Baton Rouge. Said he grew up around the corner from NBA Youngboy. Said it with his chest. Gave me whole stories about the neighborhood, the struggle, the hustle. Turns out, he grew up in a trailer park in Basel. Ain't nothing wrong with that, but why lie? At this point, I'm like, okay, I need facts. So I go to Google, type in his full name, and sure enough, boom. There he is. Date of birth? 1995. Not 2000 like he told me. That man was 5 years older than he claimed. I was legal when we met, but barely. And he knew that. That's why he lied. That's why he made sure to seem only a year older. He knew damn well the truth would have made me pause. I replayed everything in my head. The way his friend reacted one time when I asked about his birthday. His friend looked at him, then laughed and said, "He told you he was that age." And Drake was like, "Come on bro, don't play." I thought it was just banter. Just boys being goofy. Now I know it was them laughing at the fact that I didn't know the truth. That's the part that hurt most, not just the lies but the knowing deception. He knew he was lying. Knew he was manipulating me. And I was too caught up to catch it. I blocked him on everything after that. Phone. Socials. Email. Carrier pigeon. All of it. Because one thing about me, my block game is strong. You lie to me like that, you don't get a second chance. Moral of the story? Check them damn IDs. Don't just trust what someone tells you. Trust what you verify. These men will catfish you with their whole identity if they think it'll get them what they want. He didn't have to lie. I might have stayed with him even if he had told the truth from the jump. But now I just tell the story like a cautionary tale. Don't be like me, sis. Don't get bamboozled by a man with Wi-Fi and a fake backstory. Check that ID. So, let me tell y'all what happened the other week. I got stood up. Again. Now, before you hit me with the girl, get off dating apps. Just know, I already know. This is not new information. But have you ever matched with someone so many times that it starts to feel like fate's trying to tell you something? That's what happened with this dude. Let's call him Derek. Every single time I downloaded Hinge, whether it was after a breakup, a dry spell, or just a random Thursday night when I was feeling lonely, he would pop up. Like clockwork. Same smirking selfie, same witty, 2 truths and a lie answer, same, "I'm looking for something real" bio. And every single time we matched. We'd exchange a few messages, flirt a little, and then either I'd delete the app or he'd disappear. But this time we actually decided to meet. It felt symbolic. Like this was finally our moment. We agreed to meet at this cute little coffee shop downtown. I suggested it because it was low-key and close to where I had errands that day. The plan was to meet at 3 p.m. on a Saturday. Nothing fancy, just two people who had crossed digital paths too many times to ignore it anymore. That morning I was hyped. I showered, exfoliated, did my skincare routine like I was getting ready for a Vogue cover. You know that new date glow? I was glowing. I tried on 3 outfits, hated them all, had a mental breakdown, then settled on a comfy cute look. Oversized hoodie, leggings, sneakers, and a little makeup to say, I tried, but I'm not desperate. At 2:45 p.m., I texted him. Hey, on my way. Don't judge my outfit. I went with cozy over cute, lol. Delivered. No response. I brushed it off. Maybe he was already there. Maybe he figured we were about to see each other anyway. I pulled into the lot at 2:58, parked, and grabbed my bag. Still no answer. Okay, no big deal. Maybe he's sitting inside, sipping something artisanal, waiting for me like we're in a Netflix rom-com. I walk in. My eyes scan the room. No Derek. I sit down at a small table by the window and shoot him another text. Hey, just got here. Are you inside? Delivered. Still no read notification. I refresh my Hinge messages. Still matched. Still no new message. Okay. My anxiety's starting to tingle, like the opening notes of a horror movie, isn't going to end well. I wait 10 minutes. Then 15. I go to his Instagram, nothing new posted. I check his profile one last time on Hinge. Still matched. Still silent. Then I remember, earlier that morning, he had read my message at 11:30 a.m. That receipt was the last sign of life. Since then, just nothing. So I sit back in the chair, sip the overpriced oat milk latte I didn't even want, and feel that slow, creeping shame that only comes from being stood up in public. I'm not new to this. I've been ghosted, flaked on, and breadcrumbed before. But something about this one really got under my skin. Maybe because we'd matched so many times. Maybe because I had convinced myself this meant something. Maybe because deep down, I wanted to believe in the idea that the algorithm wasn't completely broken. But nope. Same pattern. Same outcome. And the worst part? I had actually turned down another guy for this date. A guy who had been persistent, sweet, maybe a little boring, but genuine. I had told him, sorry, I've already got plans. And now I was sitting alone at a tiny round table, sipping a lukewarm drink, waiting for a man who couldn't even be bothered to cancel. I should have seen the signs. He had been love-bombing in our messages, saying things like, I can't wait to finally see you in person, and this feels different, doesn't it? Which okay, cute, until it's not followed by action. This man really had the audacity to hype me up all week just to vanish 15 minutes before showtime, like my presence was optional. I gave myself 10 more minutes, just in case he had car trouble, or died, or got abducted by aliens. Honestly, I was rooting for aliens at that point. At least that would have been interesting. Still nothing. So I texted, okay, heading home now. Guess I'll take this as a no-show. No response. I deleted his number, unmatched him, and that was it. I drove home with the radio off, replaying every detail in my head. Did I say something wrong? Did I come on too strong? Did I not come on strong enough? And then I caught myself. Why was I doing that? Why was I turning myself into the villain of a story I didn't even write? This man ghosted me. Period. He didn't get nervous. He didn't forget. He didn't respectfully cancel. He just dipped. And I know it's not about me. It's about him. His fear, his immaturity, his inability to communicate like a grown-ass man. But still, it stung. Because when you're dating, especially after a breakup, you're vulnerable. You're hopeful. You're trying to believe in the possibility of connection again. And when someone treats your time and energy like it's disposable, it chips away at that hope. That night, I took off my makeup, put on a face mask, and curled up in bed with my favorite vibrator and a glass of wine. Because if anyone was going to give me pleasure and consistency that night, it was going to be me. I posted a quick TikTok about the date. Nothing dramatic. Just a, welp, got stood up again. Dating's trash. Good night. And of course it blew up. Other women flooded the comments with their own stories. One girl had gotten ghosted while already at the bar, holding the guy's jacket. Another said a guy faked a seizure to get out of a date. It was like trauma bonding, but make it digital. And as messed up as it is, it helped. Because at least I wasn't alone in this nonsense. At least I knew it wasn't just me. So yeah, that's the story of the Hinge rerun. The guy who kept circling back, only to ghost me the one time we were finally supposed to meet. So, let me set the scene for y'all real quick. It's a Saturday afternoon, and I'm trying to be a better person. Heal, grow, give people chances. I had just gotten out of a situationship that crashed and burned in record time, and I said to myself, you know what? Let's give the nice guy a shot. Enter Mr. Tinder Nice Guy. He was polite, told me I was beautiful, and within 2 days of chatting, he was already talking about how he could see us raising kids together on a farm with golden retrievers and matching hoodies or some shit. Triangular flag, but I'm like, okay, maybe he's just enthusiastic. I was trying not to be cynical. I was trying to be open-minded. So we set up a date. Nothing fancy, Black Bear Diner. You know the one. Pancakes, coffee refills, and enough wood paneling to make you feel like you're in a log cabin-themed sitcom. I put on my I'm trying, but not trying too hard outfit. Natural hair bun, a little gloss, leggings that grip where they should. I even dabbed on a little perfume. I wasn't expecting fireworks, but I was trying to be open to the idea that maybe, just maybe, this guy could surprise me. I get there a few minutes early. He's already waiting outside. He looks decent. Not catfish level bad, but definitely not the same level of filtered handsomeness from his profile. Whatever. I'm not shallow. His energy is fine. We exchange a quick hug and start chatting while we wait for our table. That's when the first weird moment happens. We're standing by the hostess stand, and he goes, I've been thinking about baby names. I've always liked the name Elijah. I blinked. Baby names? He laughs, like I'm the one making it awkward. Yeah, I know we just met, but you just seem like the kind of woman who'd raise strong kids. Sir, I just got here. I haven't even had my complimentary water yet, and you're already planning our family tree? But again, trying to be kind, I laugh it off and say, that's a lot for a first date. He shrugs. Just being honest. Now, I'm starting to feel the ick creeping in, but I tell myself to stick it out. Maybe he's just nervous. Maybe he's watched too many rom-coms. Maybe he's trying to love bomb me in a cute way instead of a manipulative one. We get called for our table, and just as we're about to follow the host, he pats his pockets, front, back, side. Oh shoot, he says. I think I left my wallet in the car. I'll be right back. Y'all, the way I knew in that moment that this man was never coming back. It hit me like a truck. I felt it in my gut, in my ovaries, in my ancestors. Still I say, okay, sure, and I sit down at the table. I even order an iced tea. I give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he actually did forget his wallet. Maybe he's just clumsy. 2 minutes go by. Then 5. I text him. Hey, you good? No response. I wait another 5. You okay? Did you leave? Still no response. I open the dating app we met on, gone. Not just unmatched. Blocked. I sit there, staring into my glass of iced tea, like it's going to explain what just happened. The waitress comes to ask if I'm ready to order. I tell her I need a few more minutes while trying not to look like I've just been publicly humiliated by a man-child with commitment issues. Here's the thing that really gets me, though. I didn't even catfish him. I was transparent. I sent him pictures of me with no makeup, hair tied up, fresh from getting my wisdom teeth out like a puffy little chipmunk. And he still said I was beautiful. I gave him the raw, unfiltered me. I didn't lead him on. I didn't pretend to be anything I wasn't. So why would he go through the trouble of setting up a date, showing up, sitting with me, and then pulling the most cowardly exit possible? I'll tell you why. Because nice guys aren't always nice. Sometimes the nice guy is just a manipulator in a cardigan. Sometimes he's just as emotionally immature as the bad boys we try to avoid, but he hides it behind compliments and I'm different speeches. That's the part that pisses me off. I was ready to give this man a chance. I had even told my friend, hey, I think he might actually be decent. And now I'm sitting alone in a booth at a chain restaurant, ghosted in real time, looking like I got stood up by a dude who couldn't even finish the appetizer round. I pay for my tea and leave. As I'm walking to my car, I start spiraling. Was it something I said? Did I not look like my photos? Was I too fat? Was I too confident? Did I scare him off? And then I stopped myself, because no, I didn't do anything wrong. He did. He didn't have the balls to say, hey, I'm not feeling it. He didn't have the maturity to say, thanks, but I don't think we're a match. He just left, like a child sneaking out of timeout. I sit in my car and record a video for TikTok. I don't name him, of course, but I tell the story. I vent. I laugh a little. I curse a lot. I talk about how exhausting dating is, especially when you're trying to give people grace, only to be disrespected. And the comments? Flooded. Women saying, girls same. People sharing their own disappearing date horror stories. One guy even commented, he probably saw a real woman and got scared. Maybe that's it. Maybe I was too real for him. Maybe my confidence made him confront the fact that he wasn't ready for a grown woman. Maybe he saw me and realized I wouldn't be easy to manipulate. Maybe he realized I wasn't going to let him play the nice guy role without earning it. And maybe that's why he left. Or maybe he's just a jackass. Either way, I'm not the villain here. I'm not the drama. I'm just a woman who showed up, kept it real, and got ghosted by a man who couldn't even ghost properly. You know how low you have to be to ghost someone in person. That's not even a ghost, that's a haunting. So yeah, that's the story of how I got abandoned at Black Bear Diner by a dude who probably still lives with his mom and thinks liking The Office makes him deep. Moral of the story? Stop giving nice guys chances just because they say they're nice. Watch their actions. Watch how they handle discomfort. Watch how they leave. Because anyone can be charming, but not everyone can be kind. And next time someone tells me they've already picked out baby names before we even get our bread basket, I'm running. You want to know what I've realized is low-key hilarious about dating horror stories? At the time, they feel like your world is ending, traumatizing, confusing, deeply unsettling. But later, bro, they're comedy gold. So let me tell y'all this one little story. I still get chills thinking about it, but now I mostly just laugh and shake my damn head. So this all starts with Tinder. Yeah, I know. Red flag number 1, right? But listen, you never really think it's going to be that bad. I swipe right on this girl, and she's got that dark, kind of goth look going on. But not like Hot Topic mall goth, more like elegant, vintage, low-key spooky. Think Morticia Adams with a push-up bra and an Instagram filter. She had big. Well, let's just say I was very physically motivated to respond to her message. I was 25 at the time, still in my say yes to everything phase. She was the same age. We chatted, she was cool, a little dry, but I chalked it up to the goth aesthetic, mysterious and all that. She invites me out for drinks, and I'm like, bet. Might be getting lucky tonight. We meet up at this bar downtown. She's dressed like a Victorian librarian who discovered fishnets. It was working for me. We have a few drinks, some awkward laughs, and then she hits me with the classic, "Want to come back to my place?" Now, I'm not a fool. I know what that usually means. My inner voice is like, let's goo-goo. So I say yes, and we hop in her car. That's when I notice the first weird thing. Her car smells old. Not dirty. Not bad. Just old. Like mothballs and cedarwood mixed with something faintly floral. We pull up to her house, and it's big. Like big. Not McMansion big, but old money big. Colonial style, wide porch, weird stone statues near the stairs. Something out of a movie where someone definitely gets murdered. I'm like, how the hell does a 25-year-old have this house? She tells me it was her family's, inherited after some deaths in the family. I don't pry, but I'm already a little uneasy. We walk in, and the spooky vibes do not let up. The house is cold, not just physically but emotionally. You know how some spaces just feel off? Each room had a different energy. The living room felt like a waiting room in purgatory. The kitchen? Cluttered, like someone had been living there, but not her. More dishes than one person would ever use. She mentioned she had a roommate sometimes, whatever that means. We get to her bedroom, and that's when the real weird shit starts. First of all, it's cold as hell in there. I ask if a window's open. She says no. No fan. No AC. Just cold. The bed is made, the lights are dim, and the walls are covered in this strange artwork. Ink drawings, abstract stuff, some of it looking like shadows or distorted faces. She says, I don't usually do this. Classic line, right? I say, me neither, and we laugh. But we both know why we're here. We start making out. Clothes come off. I'm on top, she's under me, and at first, things are going fine. But then I notice she keeps glancing over my shoulder. Not like trying to be cute or flirty, but like she's watching something behind me. I pause. You good? She says, yeah, sorry. Just thought I saw something. I try to ignore it. We keep going. But then this picture on the wall, one of the weird abstract ones, just falls. It doesn't slide. It doesn't tilt. It drops straight down, smacks the floor. I freeze. She doesn't react. I say, you're not going to check that? She says, it's fine. I'm like, okay, sure. I'm trying to stay in the mood, but now my brain is screaming, wrong house. Wrong woman. Then the bedroom door cracked open, slammed shut. Loud. Like someone kicked it. I jump off her like I've seen a damn ghost. She doesn't move. I'm like, yo, what the fuck was that? And then, this is the part that sticks with me. She sits up, looks at the corner of the room and screams. Stop. This is what I want, okay? This is what I want. Just leave. I'm standing there, pants half on, heart in my throat. I'm thinking, either she's possessed, or someone invisible is trying to take my soul. She sees my face, and immediately switches tones. I'm sorry. It's just, it happens sometimes. It's nothing. Nah, ma'am. I'm done. I start grabbing my shit. She's like, please don't leave. I didn't mean to scare you. I mumble something about needing to be up early, and stumble to the door. The front door has one of those old school screen doors in front of it. I open the main door, push the screen open, and step outside. Now here's the kicker. Those old doors don't close fast. They ease shut. But as soon as I step off the porch, slam. Both doors, wooden and screen, slam shut at the exact same time. I look back, and the lights in the house flicker. I run to my car. No music. No GPS. Just silence and panic. I'm driving down her street, which has these old-fashioned street lamps with yellow light that barely illuminates anything. I glance in the rear view, just to be safe. She's standing on the sidewalk, barefoot, wearing a robe, staring at my car. Not waving, not calling, just watching. I damn near piss myself. I drive faster than I ever have in my life. The whole way home I keep checking my mirrors, half expecting her to appear in my back seat or show up at a red light next to me like some horror movie exorcist chick. When I finally get home, I sit in my car for a second, just breathing. I block her number. Block her on Tinder. I don't sleep that night. Lights on, TV playing reruns of Friends, as if Chandler Bing can protect me from the paranormal. I never heard from her again. No texts. No calls. Nothing. It was like she vanished along with the sound of those slamming doors. And that, my friends, is how I almost became the unnamed victim in a Netflix true crime documentary. I don't mess with goth girls anymore. You show up in eyeliner and talk about your energy. I'm out. Lesson learned. But now I tell the story at parties. Because if you're going to survive a haunted hookup, you might as well get a laugh out of it. I matched with Alex on Bumble during what I now refer to as my romantic optimism era. We started talking, and the conversation was fast and fluid. He wasn't one of those guys who responded with emojis or vague, LOL that's crazy replies. He asked real questions, remembered what I said, followed up like he actually cared. We talked about our favorite authors, the worst dates we'd ever been on, and what we'd do differently if we could go back to high school with the knowledge we had now. He told me he was a lawyer, corporate but with a conscience, whatever that meant. He said he worked long hours but needed someone who could help him make the time count. I told him I was a graphic designer who sometimes forgot to blink when I got deep into a project. He said that was hot. I blushed. There was a chemistry between us that felt electric, like pulling a sweater out of the dryer and getting zapped. The kind of spark that makes you want to skip all the small talk and get to the part where you're tangled in sheets and whispering secrets in the dark. We decided to meet up the following weekend. He picked the place, a little Italian spot tucked away on a quiet street, all candlelight and clinking glasses and waiters who knew the wine list by heart. When I walked in, I saw him at the back table, scrolling through his phone with one hand wrapped around a glass of red. He looked up, and the way his eyes lit up when he saw me, it knocked the air out of my lungs. He stood up, pulled out my chair, and kissed me on the cheek. His cologne smelled like sandalwood and citrus, and when he smiled, I felt it in my knees. The night was perfect. The food was amazing, the conversation even better. He told me stories that made me laugh until I had tears in my eyes, and he listened when I talked like I was saying something that mattered. He reached across the table once, brushing his fingers against mine, and I felt it everywhere. After dinner, he walked me home. The city was quiet, the air crisp, and when we stopped outside my apartment building, I wanted to kiss him so badly it hurt. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to change my mind. I didn't. His lips were warm, soft, and sure. The kiss started sweet, but deepened quickly, the kind that leaves you breathless and slightly dazed. When we finally pulled apart, he looked at me like he was already remembering it. "Let's do this again soon," he said. I nodded, too dizzy to speak. From there, it was like falling into a dream I didn't want to wake up from. We started seeing each other regularly. He'd surprise me with flowers at work, send voice notes that made me blush in public, cook me late-night pasta in his apartment while playing soul records on vinyl. He was attentive, affectionate, and always made me feel wanted. And when we finally slept together, well, let's just say that if good sex is a conversation, ours was fluent. He knew my body like a second language. He moved with intention, slow, deliberate, like he was learning every inch of me by heart. He whispered things against my skin that made me arch into him, lose my breath, forget everything but the way he said my name like it was a promise. It was the kind of connection that makes you think, maybe this is it. But slowly, cracks began to show. He never stayed the night. Always had an early meeting or a call to prep for. He hadn't met any of my friends, and every time I brought it up, he'd change the subject or kiss me until I forgot I was supposed to be upset. He still texted and called like clockwork, still made me feel special, but there was a part of him I couldn't reach. A wall I didn't know how to climb. One night, we were curled up on his couch, watching some indie film he swore was life-changing. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then flipped it over face down, a strange tension flickering across his face. I pretended not to notice, but the seed was planted. Later, when he got up to take a call in the kitchen, I did something I never thought I would. I picked up his phone, just to look, just to confirm what I already feared. There it was, a message, bright and bold on the lock screen. "Sarah, miss you. When can I see you again? Kiss mark." My stomach dropped. I didn't even need to open it. I knew. When he came back, I was already standing by the door, my coat in my hand. "Who's Sarah?" I asked, voice flat. He froze, blinked, then sighed like he'd been caught speeding. "She's complicated," he said. "We're in the middle of separating. It's not what you think." I laughed, cold and sharp. "Isn't it always?" He reached for me. "Please, let me explain." I didn't mean to. I stepped back. "Don't. Just don't." I left without another word. The next few weeks were brutal. I cried into my pillow, blasted sad girl playlists, ate junk food and watched trash TV, and told everyone I was fine when I wasn't. I kept waiting for him to call, to come clean, to plead. He didn't. What stung the most wasn't just that he lied, it was how real it had felt. How easy it was to believe in something that never actually existed. I started going to therapy. I journaled. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted from while I was busy being wrapped in Alex's curated version of intimacy. And eventually, I met someone else. His name's Micah. There's something weirdly intoxicating about swiping on Hinge at 2 a.m. It's late enough that your standards blur, your loneliness hums just a little louder, and the low glow of your screen feels like the only thing keeping the silence at bay. That night, I was in my usual position, sprawled on the couch in boxers and a hoodie, flicking through profiles like I was flipping through a catalog I couldn't afford. I'd been single a while, and my confidence was on life support. Then I saw her. Her name was Liv, and she was the kind of gorgeous that made the world tilt. I froze. Picture this. Icy blue eyes, effortlessly tousled hair, legs that went on for days, and a smirk that felt like a dare. She wasn't just hot, she was cinematic. Like someone you'd see stepping out of a black SUV in a music video, not lounging in your dating queue on a random Thursday night. I almost didn't swipe right. I hesitated, thumb hovering. This couldn't be real. But curiosity and hormones won. It was a match. Immediate. My heart did a backflip, and I actually laughed from the shock. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to glitch out, for the app to tell me it had made a mistake. But no, Liv had matched with me. I messaged her first. Something casual. "Me? Okay, serious question. Are you a real person or part of an elaborate social experiment?" She replied within minutes. "Liv, define real." Smirking face. Yeah, I was done for. From there, it was like slipping under a spell. Liv was magnetic. She was flirty without trying too hard, cool without being detached. She asked questions that made me think, like, what's the last thing that made you feel alive? Or, if you could press a button and disappear, would you do it? We joked, too. She had this dry, sarcastic wit that made my brain light up. And the way she talked about traveling, like she was allergic to staying still. She said her favorite thing was booking a flight on impulse and figuring it out when she landed. She sent a pic of a sunset over the Amalfi Coast and said, "Wish you were here." My chest physically ached. I didn't even realize how far I'd let myself fall into the fantasy until I heard myself say out loud, "I think I'm in trouble." We made plans to meet up. She suggested this rooftop bar downtown, said it had vibes and a killer Negroni. I agreed instantly, then spent the next 12 hours spiraling. What do you even wear to a date with someone who looks like she belongs on the cover of Vogue? My palms wouldn't stop sweating. I changed shirts 3 times. I even Googled how to act cool on a date, like some hopeless freshman. About an hour before I was supposed to leave, I texted my buddy Zane, my go-to wingman and certified dating app survivor. "Me. Bro, I matched with a goddess. Her name's Liv. I think she might be the one." I sent him a screenshot of her profile. Seconds later, my phone rang. Zane wasn't laughing. "Dude," he said, his voice sharp. "That's not Liv. That's Chiara Ferrelli." "Who?" I asked, confused. "Chiara Ferrelli. Italian supermodel. She's literally walking in Milan Fashion Week right now. Check her Instagram." I did. My stomach hollowed. It was her. Same photos. Same captions. Millions of followers. And definitely not in my zip code. I stared at our chat thread, my mouth dry. Every emoji. Every wink. Every "you'd look better out of that hoodie." All of it fake. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Catfished. Hard. It wasn't just the embarrassment. It was the intimacy. The way I'd opened up. The way I'd imagined her voice, her laugh, her body pressed against mine in that rooftop elevator. I'd been aroused by an illusion. I didn't know whether to be furious or heartbroken. For a minute, I even considered still going to the bar, just to see who'd show up. But then my brain kicked in. What if it wasn't just a troll? What if it was a setup? I blocked her immediately. Deleted the app. Sat in the dark, staring at the wall like a rejected extra in some Black Mirror episode. The next few days were rough. I didn't tell anyone except Zane. I was too ashamed. I kept replaying our conversations, wondering how I'd missed it. There were no typos, no weird red flags. Just this perfect digital mirage that I wanted so badly to be real. And yeah, I missed her. Even though she didn't exist. That was the part that messed with me the most. I missed a ghost. After a week, I re-downloaded Hinge. But I was different now. Sharper. More suspicious. I didn't let myself get swept up. I read bios like I was decoding enemy transmissions. I reverse image searched profile pics. Paranoid? Maybe. But I wasn't about to get played again. And slowly it worked. I started connecting with people who were real, messy, imperfect, sometimes awkward, but real. There was one girl, Casey, who sent a voice note that made me laugh so hard I dropped my phone in the sink. Another, Taylor, who had the brightest laugh and made me try Ethiopian food for the first time. It wasn't fireworks, but it was something better. It was honest. Looking back, I still think about Liv sometimes, or whoever was behind that screen. I wonder what they wanted. A thrill? Power? Or maybe they were just lonely like me, playing pretend until they forgot where the lie ended. I don't know, but I do know this. Craving connection makes you vulnerable. The first thing I remember is the light. Flickering, cold, too white for a hotel room. Then the weight of my own body, limbs heavy, mouth dry, a dull ache behind my eyes like I'd slept too long or not at all. I opened them slowly. The ceiling above me was unfamiliar, smooth and painted beige. A vent hummed steadily. I was in a bed, the sheets tucked tightly around me, one arm cast across my stomach like I'd placed it there carefully. I sat up. The room was clean. Hotel clean. Neutral art on the walls, blackout curtains drawn, a tray with 2 empty glasses on the desk. My clothes were folded neatly on the chair. My phone was on the nightstand, face down. I didn't remember getting here. I didn't remember last night. The last clear moment was checking into the Grand Ledge Hotel at 4:36 p.m. I'd flown in for a conference, HR tech, not exactly thrilling, but the company was footing the bill. I remembered the front desk clerk handing me a plastic room key. I remembered the elevator ride, the soft jazz in the lobby, the way my name sounded when the receptionist said it, like she wasn't quite sure how to say it, even though it was printed in bold on the reservation. After that, blank. I reached for my phone. It was charged, but the lock screen was off. That set off a small alarm in my chest. I always locked it. Always. I opened the photo app. There were pictures I didn't take. One of me, asleep on the bed. The angle was from above, slightly tilted, like from the corner of the room. Another of me standing near the window, mid-motion, turning my head. Blurred. My eyes half closed. The timestamps were between 12:13 a.m. and 3:05 a.m. I checked my messages. Nothing sent. I checked my call log. One outgoing call at 1:18 a.m. to a number I didn't recognize. No voicemail. No incoming response. My heart started to pound. I got dressed, tossed my things in my bag, and went down to the front desk. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual. "Can you tell me if I checked out already? I think there's something wrong with my records." The woman at the desk smiled politely. "Room number? 812. She typed, scanned, frowned. "I'm sorry, but we don't show a reservation under that name. Not for this week." I blinked. "That's not possible. I checked in yesterday." She looked again. "There's no check-in under your name at all. Are you sure it was this location?" I opened my email. Showed her the confirmation. She looked confused. "That's our address. But this reservation number doesn't match our system." She printed something and handed it to me. "You might want to speak with the manager." I didn't wait for the manager. I just left. I walked 6 blocks to a nearby cafe, ordered a coffee I didn't want, and sat in the corner booth, slowly scrolling through my phone. That's when I saw the folder. It was buried in my notes app, a place I rarely used. Labeled simply, Room. I opened it. Inside were more photos. 10, maybe 12. All of me. In the room. In the mirror. One in the shower. I hadn't taken a single one. There were also voice memos. I listened to the first. Static. Then, "She's going to wake up soon. She always does." My hands went cold. The second. "What's the line between sleep and obedience? Between forgetting and being made to forget?" I deleted them all. Then reopened the folder. They came back. Every time I erased them, they reappeared. I went home the next day. Back to my apartment. Back to the noise of the city. I told myself it was exhaustion. Stress. Maybe I'd had a drink I didn't remember. Maybe someone had slipped something into it. But the next night, I found a flash drive in my suitcase. No label. Just tucked between 2 folded shirts. I plugged it into my laptop. Inside was a single file. Plame.mov. I hovered over it. Didn't click. Closed the laptop. Put the flash drive in a drawer. The dream started after that. Always the same room. Always the same voice, just out of reach. A whisper behind the curtain. A shadow in the mirror. I started checking every hotel room I stayed in. Every vent. Every mirror. Every smoke detector. Nothing. But the feeling stayed. Like I'd been opened. Examined. Filed away. A month later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photo. Me, asleep in a hotel bed. Not from any trip I remembered. Written on the back in neat black ink. "You always look the most honest when you're unaware." I moved that week. Changed my number. I don't travel alone anymore. I've told 2 people this story. One said I was paranoid. The other said I should go to the police. But what would I tell them? That I woke up in a room I don't remember booking? That someone recorded me and left no trace? That I still get emails from addresses I can't reply to, all saying the same thing? Do not disturb. I'm standing in the foyer of a rented estate house in the Berkshires, holding a drink I don't remember pouring, wondering again why I said yes to this. The invitation came through my friend Elise, who's always pulling me into social things I'd never initiate on my own. "It's a wedding, but not a wedding," she said. "More like a weekend-long dinner party with vows at the end." She said there'd be good food, no dress code, and the kind of people who ask about your astrology before your job. Against my better judgment, I said I'd come, on one condition. "I'm not coming alone," I told her. "Then bring a +1, she said, grinning. "You could use a little storybook energy." So I did. His name is Julian. We met 2 weeks ago at a gallery opening. He was quiet, observant, and spoke about color the way people talk about memory, slightly mournful but precise. We went for drinks after, then dinner, then my apartment. He was charming in a way that didn't try too hard. When I asked if he wanted to come to a wedding as my +1, he said, "I don't believe in fate, but I like following strange invitations." He packed a suit without asking what color I was wearing. Now we're here. Julian fits into the space like he's been here before. He knows which fork to use, which wine to choose. He laughs at the right moments. People are drawn to him. Within an hour, he's already spoken with the bride's parents, the officiant, and someone's cousin who works in film. I watch from a few steps away as he charms a small circle near the fireplace. He catches my eye across the room and gives me the most subtle nod, just enough to say, I see you. I haven't forgotten you. It feels like being chosen. That night, after dinner, we slip away from the main room and find our way to the library upstairs. The house is old, creaky, but elegant. The kind of place built to be photographed. Julian walks the perimeter of the room, fingers trailing along the books. This is the kind of place people come to be witnessed, he says. Isn't that what weddings are for? He smiles. Not just weddings. He turns to me. You know, you're different in this setting. How so? Less filtered. More ambient. I laugh. That's not a word people usually use for other people. He shrugs. It fits. He kisses me before I can reply. Soft. Then more. He pushes me gently back against the bookshelf. I let him. There's something almost ritualistic about the way he touches me, like this moment was always going to happen. Like it's not spontaneous, it's inevitable. After, I rest my head on his shoulder. He doesn't speak. Neither do I. The next day, I notice something odd. A woman at the brunch table is staring at Julian. Not in a flirty way. Not even in recognition. It's something else. She looks uneasy. I lean over to Elise. Who's that? Carmen. She used to date the groom. Why? She keeps looking at Julian. Elise glances toward her. Huh. Weird. I don't think they know each other. Julian, across the room, lifts his coffee cup toward me. Smiles. I smile back, but my stomach twists. Later, I find Carmen on the patio alone, smoking a cigarette like it's a secret. I walk over. Hey. Sorry, this is random, but do you know Julian? She looks at me. Blinks once. Julian. My plus one. She exhales slowly. That's not his name. My pulse stutters. What? That's not his name, she repeats. He was at a retreat I went to. In Vermont. Last year. He said his name was Ethan. I blink. Are you sure? I don't forget faces, she says. And I definitely don't forget people who collect stories. I feel suddenly cold. What does that mean? He said he was writing a book, she says. He interviewed people. Got them to open up. Disappearances. Grief. Intimacy. I told him things I hadn't told anyone. What happened after? She drops the cigarette, crushes it under her heel. He ghosted. Then I found pieces of our conversations, word for word, published online. Not under my name. But they were mine. That night, I confront him. We're alone in the guest room upstairs. The window is cracked. The air feels heavier than it should. Why did you say your name was Julian? He doesn't react at first. Just removes his cufflinks slowly. I like how it sounds, he says. You've used other names. He looks at me. What did she tell you? Enough. He tilts his head. People always think they want truth. But they want mythology. They want to feel like the main character. I step back. You lied to me. I gave you something beautiful, he says. You'll remember this weekend for the rest of your life. There's no remorse in his voice. Just certainty. I don't sleep. The next morning, I leave before the vows. I don't say goodbye. I don't tell Elise. Julian, if that's even his name, doesn't try to stop me. He just watches me go, hands in his pockets, like a man who's already made peace with being a memory. A month later, I find a short story published online. Anonymous. It's about a woman at a wedding who brings a man she doesn't fully know. There's a scene in a library. A line about being witnessed. A phrase, more ambient than filtered. I stop reading halfway through. I don't need to see how it ends. I already lived it. And it wasn't fiction. Not to me. You never walk into a cult knowing it's a cult. That's the thing they don't warn you about. There's no sign over the door. No slogan that says, Welcome to Emotional Codependency 101. It starts slower, softer. Like a long exhale after holding your breath for too long. And the worst part, you think you're the one who found it. I met Sage on a dating app, but it didn't feel like a swipe. It felt like gravity. Her profile was simple. One photo, no filters, a short bio. Astrologer, trauma-informed guide, still learning how to be soft. I don't even believe in astrology. Or I didn't back then. But something about her eyes in that photo, they looked like they already knew me. I messaged her first. Still learning how to be soft is the most honest thing I've ever read. She replied a minute later. That's because softness is survival. And survival is sacred. It sounds dramatic now, I know. But in the moment, it felt profound. We messaged for hours that night, talking about attachment wounds, ancestral trauma, shadow work. I didn't even know what some of those things meant, but Sage made it sound like she did. Like she had answers to questions I hadn't learned to ask yet. She was older than me by 6 years. Grounded. The kind of person who made silence feel like a conversation. She said things like, "Your energy's a little fractured today," and I'd find myself nodding, even if I didn't know what she meant. I thought I was falling in love. Looking back, I was being rewritten. Our first date wasn't a date. She called it a reading. She invited me to her place, a converted studio with floor pillows, hanging plants, and shelves full of books with titles like Womb Wisdom and The Body Keeps the Score. There was incense burning, a journal open on the floor, crystals in every corner. She asked for my birth time, birthplace, and sat me down cross-legged across from her. "You're a Virgo sun, Scorpio moon," she said. "That's why you keep trying to rationalize your feelings instead of letting them move through you." I laughed. It felt silly. But then she said, "You were emotionally neglected as a kid. That's why you seek intensity. You confuse love with presence." I stopped laughing after that, because she was right. After that night, I was hooked. She didn't just listen, she translated me. She made sense of my hesitations, my fears, my recurring need to be needed. She said things like, "You're not broken. You're just misaligned." And it felt like balm on a wound I'd been ignoring for years. We started spending more time together. She slowly introduced me to her circle, a group of spiritual seekers who met weekly for integration nights. At first I thought it was a support group, but it was more like church, if church had kombucha, unspoken hierarchies, and a lot of eye contact. Everyone adored her. They called her Sage, like it was a title, not a name. They hung on her words, repeated her phrases back like mantras. At first, I thought I was just being cynical, but then I noticed something else. They all started to sound the same. She told me I had stuck energy in my throat chakra. That's why I struggled to speak my truth. So she gave me exercises, breath work, journaling prompts, herbal tinctures. I did all of it. I didn't realize I was slowly replacing my own voice with hers. She stopped asking how I felt. She started telling me, "You're resisting. You're clinging to a narrative that no longer serves you. You're afraid of being seen. That's why you're pulling away." I wasn't pulling away. I was trying to breathe. One night, I told her I wanted space. She looked at me for a long time, then said, "That's your trauma talking." I froze. "No," I said. "That's me." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You don't know the difference yet." After that, things got blurry. She started saying things like, "You need to be mirrored by people who are on your level." And conveniently, those people were always in her circle. She discouraged me from talking to friends who weren't doing the work. She said my mom had karmic shadows, and that I should stop calling her until I felt energetically clean. She didn't forbid things. She reframed them. And I followed. Because when someone says they see your soul, it's hard to believe they might be using it. The final straw was a retreat. She invited me to a weekend gathering, 3 days of silence, journaling, and somatic unwinding. It was in the mountains. No cell service. No outside contact. The first night was fine. Long talks around the fire. Guided meditation. Everyone wore white. The second day, she asked me to share my origin wound in front of the group. I didn't want to. I said I wasn't ready. She said, "That's exactly why you need to." I hesitated. Then, in front of 15 strangers, I told the story I'd never said aloud before. About the night I realized my father was never coming back. About the way I learned to smile through abandonment. When I finished, no one clapped. No one hugged me. They just sat there watching. Sage nodded slowly. "Now we can begin." That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling of the shared bunk room, my heart pounding. I felt exposed, not healed. The next morning, I left before breakfast. Walked half a mile to get a signal. Called a friend I hadn't spoken to in weeks. She picked up and said, "Is this about Sage? Because you're not the first." I sat on a rock and cried. Leaving wasn't easy. Sage messaged me for weeks. She didn't beg. She questioned, "Are you really choosing this version of yourself? I thought you wanted to evolve. You're running, but you'll come back when you're ready." I never replied. Eventually, the messages stopped, but I kept hearing her voice in mine. Whenever I doubted myself, whenever I felt alone, it took me months to reclaim my thoughts, to realize that being understood and being controlled can feel dangerously similar, especially when you've never had either. I still believe in healing. I still believe in softness. But now I know, Anyone who tells you they're the only path to your freedom is probably building a prison and calling it home. I met Riley on a niche kink forum. It wasn't one of those shady corners of the internet. It was moderated, structured, and filled with people who took negotiation seriously. I'd been lurking for a while, reading threads about trust, boundaries, scene dynamics. I wasn't new to kink, but I was new to the idea of sharing it with someone who might actually understand the way my brain worked. Riley had commented on a post I made about exhibitionism and the line between fear and arousal. Her response was thoughtful, slightly teasing, and ended with, "Some of us like being watched, when we know who's behind the eyes." I replied. She messaged me privately. That's how it started. We chatted for 2 weeks before meeting. She lived in the city, worked at a local bookstore, and had a dry, self-deprecating sense of humor that made me laugh out loud more than once. She was open about her interests, bondage, discipline, a little roleplay, and asked about mine with curiosity, not judgment. The way she spoke about her own limits made me feel safe, like she'd done the work to know herself. That mattered to me. Our first scene was in her apartment. She set the tone right away: consent, safe words, a discussion of what was okay and what wasn't. I was nervous, but she grounded me. Her voice was steady, her movements careful. That night, I tied her wrists, blindfolded her with a silk scarf, and whispered stories into her ear as I moved my hands along her body. There was nothing rushed. The whole thing felt like a conversation without words. After, we lay in bed, tangled up in each other. She rested her head on my chest and said, "I've never felt that safe while being that exposed." I didn't say it aloud, but I felt the same. We started seeing each other regularly, always at her place. She said it made her feel more in control. I respected that. She wasn't clingy or overly emotional, but she was attentive. She'd send me voice notes describing a dream she had or a fantasy she wanted to try. She'd text me at odd hours with lines like, "I can still feel the marks on my hips. Good job." It made me feel needed, wanted. One night, after a particularly intense scene, she asked, "Do you ever record?" I paused. "You mean like for memory?" She nodded. "Or for arousal later." "I've never done it. I wouldn't without permission." She smiled. "Good answer." Then she kissed me. I should have known something was wrong when her energy shifted. She started canceling. Not often, but enough that I noticed. Her messages got shorter. She said she was just tired from work, that she was trying to limit screen time, that she needed space. I gave it to her, but something in my gut told me it wasn't just that. One night, I was scrolling through Twitter when I saw a retweet from an alt account I didn't recognize. It was a clip, low lighting, soft moaning, a woman tied to a chair, blindfolded. The caption said, "When she thinks she's in control but doesn't know about the guest account." The audio was muted, but my stomach dropped, because I recognized the scarf, the chair, her voice. It was Riley. I clicked the profile. It had hundreds of followers, all locked behind a paywall. Clips, still images, slow motion loops, and in every one, the woman's face was slightly obscured. But not enough. Not to me. It was her. But I hadn't recorded anything. I don't even own a camera. I messaged her immediately. "Riley, I need to talk to you. It's important." No response. I waited. 2 hours later, she replied, "I don't know what you're talking about." I sent the link. She left me on read. The next day, the account was gone. Deleted. But the damage was already done. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Who was behind the camera? When was it recorded? How long had it been going on? I remembered her insistence on meeting at her place. Her control over the environment. The way she always adjusted the lights. The scarf she gave me to use. The chair she asked me to tie her to. Was it all staged? Was I just part of her content? A week passed. Then I got an email. The subject line was blank. Inside was a link to a Dropbox folder. Dozens of videos. Some of me. Some of other men I didn't recognize. All of them scenes. All of them filmed from the same angle. A mounted camera, probably hidden in the bookshelf. Every folder was labeled with a name. Mine included. Aiden_2023_ account. I couldn't look away. It felt like watching a version of myself I didn't remember agreeing to. I reported the folder. It was taken down, but I knew it wasn't gone. I filed a police report. They asked if I had consented to being recorded. I said no. They said it would be hard to prove. I asked if they could track the IP. They said maybe, but I could tell they didn't think anything would come of it. I changed my number, deleted my profiles, started sleeping with my laptop camera taped over. But the worst part wasn't the exposure. It was the betrayal. Because when you let someone tie you up, you're not just trusting them with your body. You're trusting them with your name, your silence, your vulnerability. And Riley took all of it, then sold the story to strangers. I don't know where she is now. Sometimes I wonder if she's still filming, still posting, still playing the role of the submissive while holding the remote in her back pocket. I keep the scarf she gave me folded in a drawer, not as a souvenir, as proof, in case anyone ever asks what it feels like to be seen by someone who was never really looking at you. I'd always been curious about control, not just in the bedroom, though that's where it started, but in the quiet way some people take the lead in a conversation, in how they hold your gaze, how they make decisions that feel like they were yours all along. I never felt like I had much of it growing up. My parents were strict, my relationships were full of compromise disguised as love, and I spent most of my 20s being the one who adapted, accommodated, avoided conflict. So when I joined a kink-friendly forum one night, on a whim, half-buzzed, and more lonely than I liked to admit, I wasn't looking for someone to dominate me. I was looking for someone who would see me clearly, without all the softness I'd learned to hide behind. His username was Cold Script. He messaged me after I posted a vague introduction. "You write like someone who knows exactly what she wants but doesn't think she deserves it." I stared at that message for a long time. When I replied, I kept it short. "And what do you think I deserve?" His answer was instant. To be taken seriously, and to be taken apart. I should have been wary, but I wasn't. I was intrigued. His real name was Adrian. At least, that's what he told me. He was in his early 30s, soft-spoken, articulate, with a calmness that made everything he said sound reasonable, even when it wasn't. He sent long messages, not just about fantasies, but about boundaries, expectations, emotional aftercare. He had a list of questions for me, things I'd never been asked before. What does it mean to you when someone holds you down? Have you ever used a safe word in real life? What scares you more, being hurt or being ignored? We talked for weeks before meeting. He never pushed. He asked for consent at every turn. It felt safe. When I agreed to meet him in person, he suggested a hotel. Neutral ground. Quiet. No pressure. I said yes. The room was clean, quiet, and smelled faintly of citrus. Adrian wore black jeans and a dark button-up. He greeted me with a soft smile and a hand on the small of my back. "You look nervous," he said gently. "I feel like I'm making a very calculated mistake," I joked. "Then we'll go slow." He unpacked his bag, rope, a soft blindfold, a leather collar, a printed contract. No cameras. No surprises. Nothing we hadn't discussed. The contract was simple. Limits. Preferences. Safe word. Plum. I signed it. We talked for another hour before anything happened. He kept checking in. "How are you feeling? Still okay? Want to stop?" Then he kissed me. Then he tied my wrists. Then he pulled me apart in ways that made me feel more whole than I'd felt in years. Afterward, he untied me slowly, held me, rubbed circles into my back, told me I was brave. I believed him. That was the first time. After that, we fell into a rhythm, meeting once a week, always in the same hotel, always with consent and structure and clarity. He never raised his voice, never crossed a line. He made me feel like I was choosing everything, even when I was on my knees, blindfolded and shaking. "Control is a gift," he said once. "You decide who unwraps it." I memorized that line. I repeated it to myself like a mantra. It changed on the 6th session. He was quieter that day, more focused. Unpacked his bag without the usual commentary. No tea. No small talk. I asked if everything was okay. "Just thinking," he said. "I want to try something new." He showed me a soft leather gag. "Only if you want to." I hesitated. "I'll be right here the whole time," he said. "Just tap my hand if you need me to stop." I nodded. He kissed me gently before putting it on. It wasn't until my hands were tied, my vision blurred, and my mouth full that I realized something was off. I tried to speak. The gag muffled it. I tapped his hand. Nothing. I tapped again. Harder. Still nothing. The pressure increased. My wrists strained. My chest tightened. I tapped frantically. Pushed with my shoulder. Let out a muffled cry. He paused briefly, then whispered, "You're okay. Just let go." But I wasn't. And I couldn't. When it was over, I curled into myself on the bed, shaking. He untied me slowly, placed a blanket over me, and whispered, "You did so well." I didn't say anything. He kissed my forehead and left. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I messaged him. "You didn't stop when I tapped." That was the signal. He replied hours later. "I thought you wanted to push through. You've grown so much." My fingers trembled over the screen. That wasn't our agreement. You didn't say plum. I couldn't speak. Then next time, we'll make adjustments. I didn't reply. The next week, he messaged again. "I've booked the room. Same time. Are you okay?" I didn't answer. He sent another message the next day. "You're not like the others. You're stronger." I blocked him. It's been 3 months. Sometimes I still find bruises I don't remember agreeing to. I deleted the forum account. But last week, I got an email from a new address. No message. Just an attachment. A video. Me. Tied. Gagged. Struggling. No sound. Just a timestamp. I didn't open it. I forwarded it to a lawyer. I've started documenting everything. The contract. The messages. The screenshots. Because this wasn't about kink. It was about power. And when someone ignores your safe word, they're not a partner. They're a threat. And I'm not staying silent anymore. I didn't even mean to swipe that night. I was lying in bed, half wrapped in my blanket burrito, trying to wind down after a long day of grad school hell. My thumb was moving on autopilot, mind blank, just skimming through Tinder profiles without really seeing them. I'd sworn off dating apps after a string of forgettable hookups, and one guy who cried over his ex while we split a plate of pad thai. But loneliness is a sneaky little bastard. And boredom? Even worse. I stumbled across him. His name was Luca. Dark curls, sharp jawline, and this posture that screamed money and therapy. One of his photos showed him lounging on a velvet couch in a navy suit. The caption said, "I help people fall in love. Sometimes with each other. Sometimes with themselves." I rolled my eyes at first, but then I paused. That line, it stuck. Not in a corny rom-com way, but in a wait, did he actually write that sort of way? His profile said he was 28, a relationship strategist, and the author of a book called Unlearning Love. I had that book. Found it in a used bookstore last fall, buried under a stack of outdated political biographies. I stayed up all night reading it in one sitting, highlighting passages like a freshman psych major on Adderall. I didn't remember the author's picture, but the name? Luca Warren. Yep, same guy. I swiped right. Instant match. His first message wasn't "Hey" or "What's up?" It was, "If you could rewrite one moment in your relationship history, what would it be?" I stared at that message for a good 2 minutes. Then I typed back, probably the time I said yes when I knew I should have said no. He replied instantly. Most of us are trained to say yes, especially when we're afraid to be alone. I remember actually sitting up in bed. My heart was racing, but not from excitement. From recognition. That kind of unnerving familiarity you feel when someone cuts right through your noise and hits the nerve. We talked for hours that night. About attachment styles, childhood wounds, why people confuse chemistry with compatibility. He told me that most relationships fail not because of miscommunication, but because people fall in love with potential instead of reality. The next night, we FaceTimed. Then again. And again. I started looking forward to his calls. He had this calm voice, low and patient, like someone who'd never rush a sentence. He asked me questions no one ever had, about my parents, my first heartbreak, why I always felt the need to fix broken people. He remembered every answer, even the ones I gave without saying out loud. By the end of the week, we were talking every night. 10 days in, he asked if I wanted to meet in person. We met at a minimalist cafe downtown. Exposed brick, big leafy plants, oat milk, everything. He was already there when I arrived, scribbling in a leather-bound notebook. He stood when he saw me, said my name in this soft, grounded tone, and hugged me like we were picking up where we left off. And just like that, I was under. He was magnetic. Not just hot. Though yeah, he absolutely was, but present. Attentive in a way that felt dangerous. Like he saw too much and didn't flinch. We talked for 3 hours about relationships, trauma, generational habits, and the ways we sabotage ourselves for love. He told me he used to work in corporate marketing before he burned out and cracked open. He said coaching gave him purpose, that he'd spent years studying people, patterns, and pain. He told me I had a rare emotional vocabulary, that most women he dated were either guarded or codependent, but I was different. I knew myself. I wasn't afraid to look inward. I didn't even finish my coffee. I was too busy drinking in his attention. After that, we started seeing each other regularly. We weren't official, but it felt exclusive. He cooked for me, made me playlists, bought me a weighted blanket after I told him I had insomnia. And the sex? God. It was like he knew how to touch every part of me, physically, emotionally, spiritually. He didn't just fuck, he studied me. Things started feeling a little off around week 3. I noticed he was posting more on Instagram. Stories where he'd talk about clients or case studies. At first, I was proud. Like, look at my man dropping wisdom. Until one night, I saw a story captioned. Client A struggles with saying no. Classic fawn response. We're working on it. The quote sounded uncomfortably close to something I'd told him. Word for word. I tried to shake it off. He was a coach. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Then came another one. She intellectualizes everything. It's her way of avoiding vulnerability. Again, painfully familiar. I clicked through more stories. One mentioned a woman with a high-control upbringing and a history of emotional neglect. Another described someone who dissociates during intimacy but performs well socially. I felt nauseous. Then he sent me a link to his podcast. Thought you'd like this one, he said. I put on my headphones. His voice poured into my ears. I've been working with someone recently. She's incredibly bright. Sociologist. Very self-aware. But she has a pattern of intellectualizing her emotions. It's a defense against being truly seen. My stomach dropped. She's been through betrayal. Her last partner cheated. She never confronted him. She just stayed. That's what happens when we confuse loyalty with love. I ripped my earbuds out. My hands were shaking. I confronted him the next night. Is that podcast episode about me? He didn't even try to deny it. Of course it is, he said calmly. You're part of my work. I never agreed to be used like that. You're not being used. You're helping people. I'm sharing insights. No names. No identifiers. You're monetizing my trauma. He looked genuinely surprised. Ava, I'm not exploiting you. I'm honoring you. You're the reason I can teach the way I do. You're dating people to study them. He didn't flinch. I date people because I want to connect. But yes, I learn from those connections. That's part of being a coach. I left. Walked straight out of his apartment with my chest tight and my hands balled into fists. I blocked him on everything that night. But it didn't stop there. I kept seeing his content. TikToks where he'd say things like, some people are so addicted to being the strong one they forget how to feel safe. Tweets that mirrored things I'd told him in bed. Quotes that were basically my therapy sessions with a filter. I tried to let it go. Until one night at my cousin Jade's birthday party, she leaned in and said, Guess who I'm talking to? I smiled tipsy. Who? Luca. That relationship guy. He's so smart, Ava. Like therapy-level smart. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Jade. That guy. He's not who you think he is. Her face shifted. Oh my God, wait. Is this the guy you dated? Yes. And he used me. He studies women. He turns people into content. Jade blinked. Ava, come on. Just because it didn't work out. I'm serious. He's dangerous. She rolled her eyes. You sound jealous. She left before I could convince her. I stood there, drink sweating in my hand, watching her disappear into the crowd. 3 weeks later, I got a DM from an anonymous account. You don't know me, but I saw your name in one of his notes. You're not the only one. Attached was a screenshot, a spreadsheet, rows of names, ages, attachment styles, sexual preferences, trigger points, quotes, outcome notes. Ava, row 7. Jade, row 12. Some entries were marked case study alpha. Others said used in workshop 3 or referenced in module 2. I felt like I was going to throw up. I screenshotted everything, sent it to Jade, then to every woman I knew who might have crossed his path. The spreadsheet went viral in our university's private forums. Within a week, his coaching license was under review. His podcast vanished. His TikTok comment sections turned to war zones. One by one, women came forward. Same stories. Same language. Some had been clients. Others just dates. All of them had been studied, cataloged, and turned into anecdotes. He tried to spin it. Posted a video in soft lighting saying, healing sometimes comes from places we don't expect. I never claimed to be perfect. The internet didn't buy it. Neither did I. I never got an apology. But I didn't need one. I started dating again slowly. Carefully. I told people up front, I'm not your project. Don't try to fix me. I wasn't planning to meet anyone that night. The hotel lobby was quiet, bathed in that fake warmth only high-end places manage to pull off. Golden lighting, oversized couches, the scent of eucalyptus and leather. I just wrapped a brutal 3-day conference on enterprise UX, and all I wanted was to disconnect my brain and maybe nurse a glass of overpriced whiskey in my room. But boredom, like loneliness, always finds a way in. I opened Tinder out of habit. I wanted just distraction. A little dopamine hit before bed. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Then her. Naomi. Red hair, arched brows, a smirk that said she knew all your secrets before you did. Her profile was short, just a quote. I don't do small talk. Come correct. You're at the Grand Ledge, yeah? My stomach flipped. Yeah, just checked in. I'm 5 floors up. Room 409. Come have a drink. I've got the good stuff. She sent a selfie. Not a full face, just lips and collarbones, a wine glass in hand. The lighting was dim, sultry. I hesitated. It should have felt weird. But I'd had 2 drinks already, and she was beautiful, and something about the way she didn't bother pretending, just straight to the point, made me feel like I'd regret it if I said no. So I didn't. I grabbed my key card, slipped my phone in my pocket, and headed to the elevator. My heart pounded harder than it should have. I told myself it was the excitement, the thrill of doing something spontaneous. The kind of moment you laugh about later. The 4th floor was quiet. Carpeted halls, soft lighting, no sound but the low hum of air vents. Room 409 was at the far end, next to the ice machine. I stood in front of the door for a second, hand hovering over the handle, wondering if I was about to walk into a setup. Then it opened. Naomi stood in the doorway wearing a black silk robe, loosely tied, her hair up in a messy twist. She gave me a look that landed somewhere between amused and appraising. You're taller than I thought, she said, stepping aside. I walked in. The room was dim, lit only by a lamp in the corner and the TV on mute, playing some old black and white movie. There was jazz playing from a Bluetooth speaker. The bed was made too neatly, and the minibar was open, 2 glasses already poured. She handed me one without asking what I liked. Cabernet. Not the hotel trash, she said, clinking her glass against mine. You looked bored in your photos. I laughed too quickly. I was. She sat on the edge of the bed, legs crossed, robe slipping slightly to reveal a lean shoulder and the curve of one breast. She didn't adjust it, just watched me over the rim of her glass. We talked for a bit, surface stuff. Where we were from. What brought us to the city. She said she worked in tech, but didn't elaborate. Said she liked fast decisions and hated indecision. Her gaze never left mine. She didn't blink much. After the second glass, she stood up and walked to the window. The robe parted slightly in back, revealing black lace underwear. Nothing too obvious, just enough to feel deliberate. You ever do this before? She asked, still facing the window. What, come to a stranger's hotel room? She turned, smiling. No. Let someone else drive. I didn't answer, but I didn't back away either. She walked back toward me, set her glass down, and straddled my lap. The kiss was immediate, deep, hungry, no hesitation. Her hands moved fast, undoing buttons like she'd done it 1,000 times. Her mouth tasted like wine and something darker underneath, like cloves or cinnamon. Clothes came off in pieces. She pushed me down on the bed and climbed on top, her pace slow and deliberate, like she was in control of every breath in the room. And I let her have it. I didn't ask questions. I didn't care. Afterward, we lay there in silence, the kind that's supposed to be comfortable but wasn't. She sat up first, pulling the robe back over her shoulders, tying it tighter this time. I need a quick shower, she said, heading into the bathroom. The door clicked shut. I lay there for a second, catching my breath, staring at the ceiling. Then I sat up and looked around the room. Something felt off. There were no bags, no shoes, no signs that anyone actually lived in the space. The closet was empty. I stood and walked toward the minibar, thinking maybe I'd pour another glass. That's when I saw it. A tiny red light, blinking from the smoke detector. I froze. It was subtle, barely visible unless you were looking for it. But it was blinking. And right next to it, a small black dot that didn't match the rest of the device. I went cold. I turned slowly, scanning the room. The alarm clock had a second lens. The lamp base looked wrong. My skin crawled. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera, switching to infrared. I'd read about this once, a trick to detect hidden cameras. I turned toward the mirror. There it was. A faint white glow in the top corner. A pinhole camera, hidden behind the glass. I stepped back. My heart was racing. I pulled on my pants and shirt with shaking hands. The bathroom door was still closed. The shower was running now. I opened the nightstand drawer. Inside, I found a remote I hadn't noticed before. It wasn't for the TV. It had no labels. Just buttons. Next to it was a small folded piece of paper. I opened it. It just said, "Smile. You're part of the collection now." I dropped it. My hands were sweating. I looked at the door. It was closer than the bathroom now. I could run. I could grab my stuff and go. But I didn't know what was on those cameras. What was being recorded. Or streamed. I grabbed my phone, shoved it into my pocket, and moved toward the door. Then I heard the shower turn off. The door opened. Naomi stood there, hair wet, wrapped in a towel. She looked at me, saw my face, and tilted her head. "You okay?" she asked. I held up the note. Her expression didn't change. "Why are there cameras?" I said, my voice hoarse. She looked at them, then at me. "You're not the first person who's asked that." I backed toward the door. "What the F is this?" Naomi sighed. "You could have just left. Most people don't look. They drink, they F, they leave. Are you recording people? Are you selling this?" She didn't answer. "I swear to God, I'll call the cops." Naomi laughed. Not mockingly, just quietly. Like she heard that line too often to take it seriously. "You can call them," she said. "This isn't my room. I'm not even registered here. I use a guest key. Room's paid in cash. Under a fake name. You'll report it, they'll investigate, they'll find nothing. Just a guy who got laid in a hotel room and got paranoid." My throat was dry. "What do you get out of this?" She smiled again. "Control. Art. Data. Doesn't matter." I didn't wait for more. I flung the door open and ran. I didn't stop until I was in the elevator, clutching my phone, watching the floor numbers drop like a countdown. I half expected her to follow me. She didn't. When I got back to my room, I locked the door, shut the blinds, and sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went to the front desk. Asked if I could speak with the manager. I told them someone had used a room on the 4th floor under false pretenses. They looked confused. Room 409 wasn't even checked in, they said. It was blocked off for maintenance. I asked to see the security footage. They said I'd need to file a police report first. I did. The police officer listened politely, took notes, and told me they'd look into it. That was the end of it. I met him at a coffee shop, not on an app. Which, in hindsight, almost made it worse. I'd just finished a long run, sweaty, flushed, still wearing my compression leggings and a hoodie, when I ducked into the cafe on Main and 7th for a cold brew and a protein bar. He was standing near the fridge section, browsing sparkling waters like it was a life-or-death decision. Tall, athletic build, low-key handsome in a subtle, well-moisturized way. When I reached for the same bottle he did, we both laughed. He let me take it and said something about hydration karma. I smiled, thanked him, and walked to the counter. I didn't expect to see him again, but he was outside when I left, leaning against a matte black car with a logo I didn't recognize. He looked up from his phone and said, "Hey, sorry, this is going to sound bold, but would it be totally weird if I asked to buy you another one of those waters sometime?" I hesitated, but something about him seemed normal. Not pushy. Warm even. "Sure," I said. "Why not?" That's how I met Elias. We didn't jump into romance right away. Our first few hangouts were casual. He suggested quiet places, asked thoughtful questions, never made it feel like a date unless I wanted it to. He told me he worked in biotech, mostly consulting, and that he didn't love talking about his job because it was kind of niche. I respected that. I dated guys who talked about themselves like they were on a panel at South by Southwest. Elias was different. He liked to listen, and I liked being listened to. I told him about my work as a med student, my obsession with long-distance running, my weird little routines. He remembered everything. After I mentioned that I usually trained early in the morning, he started texting me good luck right before sunrise. He always asked how my body felt after long runs. Once, he even brought me a bag of post-workout snacks, just in case you forgot to eat. No one had ever paid that kind of attention to me before, not in a way that felt so precise. I should have noticed how precise it really was. About 3 weeks in, he invited me to a weekend retreat. I laughed, thinking he was joking. "No, seriously," he said. "It's not a yoga thing or anything weird. It's just a small group, a wellness concept, sort of." We do breath work, cold plunges, biofeedback. It's designed for people with high cognitive loads. You'd fit right in. I blinked. What kind of group? He smiled. People who take care of themselves. All science-based, I promise. You'll get a full panel done. Blood work, nutrition, body mapping. You'd love it. Something about the way he said full panel gave me pause. But again, Elias had never made me uncomfortable. He was gentle, respectful. I trusted him. And I admit I was flattered. I'd always been obsessed with optimization, meal plans, sleep cycles, VO2 max. The idea of a weekend focused entirely on health and recovery? Honestly, it sounded amazing. He sent me the address, just outside the city. A private villa-turned-retreat center, tucked into the woods, gated and serene. I Googled it. No website, but a few vague mentions on closed forums for med students and researchers. He picked me up that Friday. The drive was quiet, peaceful. Classical music played softly from the car's speakers. Elias told me more about the weekend. No phones, no social media, all for privacy. He said the guests were mostly academics, a few athletes, and people with profiles that make them easy targets for burnout. I nodded. I hadn't told him, but I'd been feeling exactly that way for weeks. When we pulled up to the house, my first thought was, this place is beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows, clean lines, minimalist landscaping. A woman in scrubs greeted us at the door. She smiled, handed me a clipboard, and said, just a few intake questions. Nothing invasive. The form asked for the usual: allergies, blood type, medical history. I filled it out, handed it back, and followed Elias into the main room. That's when I noticed something strange. There were only women. For others all around my age, scattered through the open space, lounging on sofas, sipping tea, reading. They looked relaxed. Too relaxed. One girl had a bandage on her arm, but didn't seem bothered. Another rubbed her temple like she had a headache. No one said much. They're recovering, Elias whispered. Most guests arrive exhausted. I nodded, swallowing the sudden tightness in my throat. Maybe it was just nerves. He led me to a room upstairs, simple, clean, sterile. There was a white robe on the bed and a laminated schedule on the nightstand. My name was printed at the top. Welcome, Reese. Session 1, Baseline Diagnostics. 7:45 p.m. Room B. I tried to text my roommate, just to let her know I'd arrived safely. No signal. That night, I lay on a padded table while a woman in scrubs drew blood. A little more than usual, she said, smiling. We do advanced panels. I watched as she filled 4 vials. Then 5. Then 6. My head swam. Can I ask what you're testing for? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Oh, everything, she replied. Metabolic markers. Immune variants. Hormonal rhythm. Blood compatibility. I blinked. Compatibility for what? She didn't answer. Just clamped the gauze down on my arm and taped it tight. The next morning, I woke up with a dull ache behind my eyes. Elias brought me breakfast, green juice, a protein bar, and herbal supplements in a tiny glass bowl. You're a rare type, he said, setting the tray on my lap. What does that mean? He smiled. Blood. You're O negative, right? I froze. I didn't tell you that. You put it on your intake, he said casually. And I remembered. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. I pushed the juice aside. He sat on the edge of the bed. You're incredibly healthy. Do you know that? Your resting heart rate. Your hemoglobin levels. Your iron. Most people would kill for your numbers. I stared at him. Why are you telling me this? He didn't answer. Just reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from my face. You're what we've been looking for, he said. I got out of bed. Elias, I want to go home. He stood. You will. After the final session. What session? He walked to the door and opened it. 2 men stood outside. They weren't smiling. They took me downstairs to a different room, darker, colder. A medical table in the center. Cabinets along the wall. The smell of antiseptic hung in the air like fog. Elias followed behind me. I'm sorry it has to be like this, he said. But you'll be okay. I promise. You'll wake up fine. What are you doing? I asked, voice rising. What is this place? He looked at me with something almost like pity. You have something inside you that someone else needs. It's not personal. It's biology. I backed against the wall. You're selling blood? He shook his head. Not just blood. My hands were shaking. You can't do this, I whispered. You can't just take. You signed the forms. I didn't agree to this. You didn't read them. I lunged for the door. The 2 men blocked it. One of them pulled out a syringe. I don't remember much after that. Just the cold sting of the injection. The way the ceiling blurred. A voice, Elias maybe, saying, "We'll monitor her closely. She's too valuable to lose." Then blackness. I woke up in a different room. My arm was bandaged. My abdomen ached. I couldn't sit up at first. My body felt hollow. My mouth was dry. My vision swam. A nurse came in and gave me water. She didn't speak. I passed out again. When I woke up the second time, I was in the back seat of a car. A woman I didn't recognize was driving. She said she was from a recovery service and that I'd been discharged early due to sensitivity. I asked her what that meant. She didn't answer. She dropped me off 2 blocks from my apartment. I stumbled up the stairs, collapsed into bed, and slept for almost 18 hours. When I finally had the strength to check my body, I found a small incision just below my ribcage. Clean. Sutured. Professionally done. I went to the ER the next day. They ran a few scans. The attending came back into the room, looking confused. "Did you know you're missing a kidney?" I filed a report. The police asked questions. I told them everything. They found nothing. 1 swipe turned into 10, then 20. Then there was him, Micah. His profile wasn't flashy, just a couple of photos, all neutral tones and clean lines. A soft smile, messy hair, and eyes that looked like they'd seen more than they let on. His bio read, "I like quiet places, long books, and people who mean what they say." It felt calm, like someone I could exhale around. I swiped right. We matched instantly. His first message wasn't clever, but it wasn't lazy either. "You look like someone who reads the last page of a book before the first." Am I wrong? It was weird, specific, and somehow exactly right. I replied, "Only if I think it'll break me. I like to be prepared." Same. Emotional spoilers help me breathe. That's how it began. Conversations that weren't about where we were from or what we did for work, but about how we thought, how we felt, what we feared. He wasn't the kind of guy who sent emojis or memes. He asked things like, "Do you think silence is a form of honesty?" Or, "What's your pattern when you feel unsafe?" I told myself it was refreshing, mature, something real after a string of half-hearted connections. Within a week, he felt familiar in a way that made me nervous. Our first date was a bookstore cafe downtown. He wore a gray sweater with the sleeves pushed to his elbows, and he smelled like cedar and rain. He didn't try to hug me right away, just smiled, held the door open, and asked if I wanted tea or coffee. We sat in the upstairs corner of the shop, away from the windows, tucked into a booth like we were hiding. The conversation flowed easily. He talked about the books he loved, the way city noise made him feel like he was dissolving, how he hated small talk because it wasn't built for people who feel too much. I told him about my job, middle school counselor, and the way it drained me some days. He listened like it was the most important story he'd ever heard. "People like you," he said, "are always the ones who get hurt the worst. Because you see everything, and you still stay." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just sipped my tea and looked down at our hands resting on the table, close but not touching. We started seeing each other once or twice a week. Then 3. Then somehow every day. He was always texting, always checking in. "Did you eat? How did that meeting go? You seemed quiet this morning. Want to talk about it?" At first, it felt like love. Then it started to feel like surveillance. It was subtle. He never said, "You can't go out." But when I told him I had plans, he'd say, "I thought we were spending tonight together." When I mentioned an old friend texting me, he'd go quiet for hours, then send something like, "I just didn't think you'd still need attention from other people." I started apologizing more, canceling plans, staying in. It didn't feel like fear. Not yet. Just guilt. One night, about a month in, I stayed late at work. A student had come to me crying, and I couldn't just leave. I texted Micah, let him know I'd be home around 9. At 9:07, I got a message. Guess I know where I rank. When I got home, he was sitting on my doorstep. I startled. "What are you doing here?" He shrugged, like it was nothing. "Just wanted to make sure you were safe. You didn't need to come all the way over." You didn't answer for over an hour. I was literally counseling someone through a panic attack. Micah stood, brushing off his jeans. "That's what you do, right? Fix everyone but yourself." I didn't know whether to be angry or worried. He stayed the night. We didn't talk about it again. Things escalated slowly. He started pointing out how my friends didn't really get me. How they only liked the version of me that was easy to digest. How I was the one always giving, never receiving. He said I deserved better. And somehow, I started to believe him. He encouraged me to take space from people. Said it was healthy. That boundaries were love. The way he said it, soft, slow, almost clinical, it didn't feel like control. It felt like care. Until I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen my best friend in person, or gone a full day without checking in with him. One afternoon, I came home and found a notebook on my kitchen counter. It wasn't mine. I opened it. Inside were pages and pages of notes, in Micah's handwriting. About me. Not poems or sweet observations. Logs. Tuesday, she was on edge after work. Likely because of that coworker. Watch for recurring stressors. Thursday, she texted her sister at 11:37 p.m., unusual. Saturday, seemed emotionally distant during dinner. Possible hormonal link. Pattern forming, retreat, over-explaining, apologizing. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The last page said, still hiding parts of herself. Still afraid of being loved fully. Still worth the effort. I didn't confront him. Not right away. Instead, I started watching him the way he had watched me. I noticed how he always knew where I was, even when I hadn't told him. How he'd repeat things I'd said in passing, things I didn't even remember saying. How he never talked about his own life in detail. Just vague references. A job in consulting. A past full of lessons. One night, I pretended to fall asleep on the couch. I felt him get up, heard the soft click of my phone unlocking. I waited. The next morning, my texts were in a different order. I changed my password. He asked why. I said I'd read an article about digital privacy. He smiled. Good girl. I started pulling back, going out more, turning off my phone, saying no. That's when the silence started. He stopped texting, stopped showing up. No accusations, no anger, just absence. At first, I was relieved. Then I was scared, because I realized he wasn't just keeping tabs on me. He was training me. And now, I didn't know how to move without wondering if he was watching. One night, I got a message from an unknown number. You're not the first, but maybe you'll be the last. Attached was a PDF. It was a spreadsheet. Names, dates, notes, emotional patterns, response times. My name was in the middle. Rebecca, type, caretaker, pattern, self-blame, compliance, collapse. I scrolled. There were dozens of other names, each with their own pattern, each with their own ending. At the bottom, one entry was marked. Active. Observation phase complete. Integration ongoing. It was dated the day we met. I moved. Changed my number. Deleted every app. Micah never reached out again. Not directly. But every few months, I'll get a new follow request. A comment on an old post. A message that just says, still worth the effort. I know it's him. I don't respond. I just block. And document. Because even now, some nights, I catch myself thinking about how good it felt in the beginning. How seen I felt. How safe. And then I remember, it wasn't safety. It was surveillance. I met Jeremy at a board game night. Not a date. Not a setup. Just one of those bring a friend of a friend, things held in someone's apartment with low lighting, too many snacks, and the smell of candles that try to hide how old the couch really is. He was quiet. Not shy, exactly, just reserved. The kind of guy who waits for the second beat in a conversation before speaking. He wore a dark green flannel and black jeans, had a calm presence, and laughed quietly at the right moments. I noticed he never pulled out his phone once. He was playing a character in a storytelling game when I first really looked at him. He narrated with precision, his words sharp, deliberate, like someone who measured everything before saying it aloud. After the game broke up and people drifted into smaller conversations, I found myself next to him on the floor, sipping ginger ale out of a cracked ceramic mug. You're the only person I've met who doesn't hate being quiet, he said. I smiled. Noise kind of exhausts me. He nodded, as if I'd passed some test. We talked for an hour. Then two. About libraries as sacred spaces. About memory and how it fails us. About how some moments feel more real when you write them down than when you actually live them. Jeremy said he worked at an archival center, digitizing old journals, personal letters, photographs. His job, he said, was to preserve what people forgot they were saying. I didn't know what that meant, but I liked the way he said it. We exchanged numbers. He didn't text right away. 3 days later, I got a message at 8:02 a.m. You mentioned you liked late 70s synth. Thought of you when this came on. No other context. Just a Spotify link. I listened and smiled. That's how it started. Our first date was a walk through the University Arts Library. He asked if I wanted to see the private stacks, old collections not available to the public. He wasn't a student there, he said, but he had access through a side project. I didn't ask questions. I just followed. We passed through a narrow door behind the reference desk and into a room that smelled like dust and ink and forgotten stories. He showed me a collection of handwritten diaries from the 1940s, pointed to the faded ink. See how the pressure changes here, he whispered. That's when she started lying. I laughed but stopped when I saw he was serious. He traced the margin with one finger. People always leave clues. He looked at me then. Even you. We started seeing each other regularly. Not every day, but often enough that I stopped wondering when I'd hear from him next. Jeremy didn't flood my phone with messages. He sent thoughtful things. An article he said reminded him of our last conversation, a black and white photo with no caption, a sentence from a book I'd never read. He remembered everything I told him, that I hated thunder, that I deleted old texts because they made me feel cluttered, that I always slept with socks on, even in summer. It should have been sweet, but sometimes it felt like he was keeping a ledger. The first time we slept together, he asked if I'd ever been recorded without my consent. I blinked. What kind of question is that? He shrugged, tracing his finger along my collarbone. It happens more than people think. Sometimes people don't even know until years later. Have you? I've recorded things, he said, but never without permission. He said it slowly, carefully. I nodded, but I didn't ask more. I didn't want to know. A few weeks in, I started noticing things. He always seemed to know when I was having a bad day, even if I hadn't told him. Once I mentioned a specific nightmare in passing, and the next morning he sent me a voice memo saying, "If you need to talk about the dream, I'm here." It sounded like it shook you. I never told him the details. Another time, I changed my shampoo. The very next day, he said, "Something smells different. Lavender and rosemary, right?" I hadn't seen him in person yet. One night, I was at his apartment, small, clean, minimal, but oddly empty. No photos, no clutter. He made tea and left me alone in the living room while he took a call. I wasn't snooping. I was just stretching, bored, when I noticed a cabinet door slightly ajar. Inside were rows of labeled folders, each with a name. I pulled one out. Marissa, 2019. I opened it. Inside were screenshots of text threads, printed and highlighted. Photos. A dried flower taped to a page. A printed Google map with a red line traced between two addresses. I froze. I checked 3 more folders. Nina, 2020. Julia, 2021. Cassie, 2022. Each one was meticulous. Cataloged. Dated. Then I saw it. Rena, 2023. My name. I didn't open it. I just stood there, folder shaking in my hands, until I heard his voice behind me. "You weren't supposed to see that." I turned slowly. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. "What is this?" I asked. He walked over, calm as ever, and gently took the folder from my hands. "My archive," he said. "My way of remembering. This is invasive. You kept maps. I kept moments. Things that mattered. Things people forget." I stared at him. "Without telling them? I never used anything to hurt anyone." He paused. "But people leave. They always leave. And then memory becomes fiction. I don't want that. Jeremy, this is not normal." He tilted his head. "Maybe not, but it's honest." I left that night. He didn't stop me. Didn't text. Didn't call. But 2 days later, I got a package. Inside was a hard drive. And a note. "I wanted to give you a choice. You can look. Or you can forget. Either way, you're part of the story now." I didn't plug it in. I hid it in the back of my closet, but I haven't thrown it out. I didn't even want to download Tinder. For months, my friends kept hyping it up like it was this magical portal to sizzling connections and dreamy dates. I rolled my eyes through every group chat message, every wine night intervention. I had just gotten out of something complicated, and the idea of meeting strangers through an app felt cold. But loneliness is a sneaky beast, and one rainy Friday night, with a half-finished bottle of Rose and Euphoria playing in the background, I gave in. The app was addictive, I won't lie. There was something thrilling about swiping through polished selfies, curated bios, and trying to decode someone's vibe from 6 pictures and 3 emojis. Some guys were clearly there for one thing, and others seemed like they'd cry if you didn't text back in 5 minutes. Then there was Jackson. Jackson's profile practically pulsed with chaotic charm. His photos were pure adrenaline, hanging off a rock wall, flipping midair on a snowboard, and one blurry shot of him laughing with a beer in hand, his dimples popping like punctuation marks. His bio read, "Part-time adrenaline junkie, full-time overthinker. Let's do something that scares you." It was ridiculous. I was hooked. I swiped right. We matched instantly. His first message? "Tell me the last thing that made your heart race, and don't say this match." I laughed out loud. Jackson had this way of pulling you in effortlessly. Our chats were a blend of flirtation and oddly intimate confessions. He asked about the weirdest dream I ever had, what I'd do if I only had 24 hours left, and whether I believed in fate or chaos. We talked until 2 a.m. multiple nights in a row, and I found myself checking my phone more than I cared to admit. When he finally asked to meet up, I hesitated. There's always that moment of pause between fantasy and reality. I didn't know him. Not really. But the way he typed, the way he listened, the way I felt when I saw his name pop up, it all felt so personal, so inviting. I said yes. We planned to meet at this artsy cocktail lounge downtown. The kind of place that had moody lighting and drinks named after obscure indie songs. I agonized over my outfit, trying to strike the impossible balance between effortlessly hot and, I just threw this on. I settled on a cropped black sweater, high-waisted jeans, and my Docs, my go-to armor. When I walked in, I spotted him right away. He looked exactly like his photos, tall, toned, with messy dark hair and that same magnetic grin. My stomach flipped as he stood up and pulled me into a hug. He smelled like cedarwood and cinnamon, and his arms lingered around me just a second too long. I told myself it was nerves, that it was kind of nice to be wanted like that. We sat down, and it was easy. Too easy. He was funny, charming, and intense, in a way that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. Every time I looked away, he was already watching me. His leg brushed against mine under the table, and his hand grazed my arm when he laughed. I felt warm, flattered, and just a little bit dizzy from the cocktail. But as the night went on, something began to shift. The teasing turned darker, sharper. He joked about my innocent act, about how I probably had a secret wild side I was hiding. I laughed it off at first. I mean, who hasn't flirted with a little edge? But then he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You know, you've got this energy," he said, his breath brushing my ear. "It's like you're waiting for someone to unlock you." I froze for a second, unsure if I was flattered or creeped out. I managed a tight smile and tried to steer the conversation back to less loaded territory. Travel plans, music, anything. But Jackson wasn't interested in light. He kept circling back, pushing boundaries with a smile on his face. At one point, he slid his hand onto my thigh under the table. I stiffened. He didn't move it. I gently pushed his hand away and laughed awkwardly, trying not to make a scene. "You're bold, huh?" He smirked. "I like to test limits." There was a flicker in his eyes, something colder than before. I excused myself to the bathroom, my pulse racing. I locked the stall door and stared at my reflection in the mirror, willing myself to breathe normally. I didn't feel drunk. I felt hunted. When I stepped out of the stall, I nearly screamed. Jackson was standing by the sink, arms crossed, watching me. "You okay?" he asked, his voice too casual. I nodded, my body tense. "Yeah, just needed a sec." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers brushing my cheek. "You're not running away, are you?" I didn't answer. I just walked past him, my skin crawling. But before I could leave the bathroom, his hand closed around my wrist, firm, not violent, but enough to halt me. "I'm just messing with you," he said, laughing softly. "You're so jumpy." I pulled away. "Don't touch me." His smile faded for the first time. "Wow, chill." Back at the table, I grabbed my coat and bag. "I'm heading out." He didn't argue. Just sat there, sipping his drink, his eyes following me like a shadow. I walked fast. I didn't look back. I called an Uber from the next block and kept glancing over my shoulder like he might appear again. When I got home, I locked the door and double-checked the windows. My phone buzzed. Jackson had fun. "You've got this spark. Don't dim it." I blocked him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The way he looked at me, the way his touch lingered too long, the way he invaded my space and twisted my nerves into knots. I felt sick for not leaving sooner. for ignoring the warning signs because I wanted to believe in chemistry and fate and modern fairy tales. It took weeks to shake the feeling. I deleted Tinder. I didn't go on another date for months.